Hello, everybody out there, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Beam Bites. I am very pleased and happy to announce our interview today with Mr. Al Taylor. He is the jack of all trades and master of many, and he's also the latest board member we have on our Beam Education board. Also joining me for today's interview, my normal co-host is CEO and founder of B.E.A.M Education, Dr. Andrea Nelson. Welcome, both of you guys today. Al, we were talking a little bit before we started, and you were giving us a little synopsis of the many credits and things that you've done over your life. So, if you would kind of recap for our folks joining us, how you are a jack of many trades and master of many is what I put in the description. So go ahead and start from there for us if you.
All right. Well, trying to run a business of your own is something you have to really have confidence in yourself in doing. If you are going to try it and then just think it's something that's going to happen overnight, you're actually wasting your time. It takes a lot of time to get it there. Uh, People that own businesses, they don't just get it by just staying in bed till noon and then getting up and it just happens. You have to get up every morning with a purpose, just as if you work for somebody else. You have to set the clock just the same way. And and if you don't do that, you're not going to make it. You can't just hope and pray that it's going to work out for you. You got to actually experience alone is just not enough. You have to get up and you have to push yourself every day as if somebody else is pushing you.
Al, tell us a few of the businesses that you have been involved in. What's some of the business experience that you've had?
Well, I started out a subcontractor business after running a print shop for 16 years and did a lot of studying right off the bat and watched other people how they did it and turned out to work out for me pretty good. I didn't have any problem at all. Just uh, walked right into the business, construction business, like I've done it for years and made a living at it for 10 years. Decided it was something I wanted to, back out of. It was great for the 10 years, but I like to move around. So I went into the petroleum business after that and learned a lot about that. Was a gas well technician for about 4.5 years and would have probably stayed at that for a while, except they sold the company. So I had to move on to a different trade. And then I went back to working for myself again, starting a DJ business, Texas Entertainment, which worked out for me great for almost 20 years. It's just you get older and you don't like the atmosphere as much. The wild atmosphere is a little too much for me, so I had to calm it down. But now I have At One Motorsports, which is working out fine. Everything's working good on it. Uh, Stay real busy. It's not it's working for yourself. It's not something you just get up, work a 9 to 5. It's all the time. But the payout is
Dr.
and it's good.
Dr. Nelson, as you adjust your camera down for us for a little bit, when we were looking for board members for Beam Education, Al was one of the first names that we discussed in potential board members. So why don't you share with us some of the reasons why you thought Al Taylor would be a good board member candidate for Beam Education and ask him a few questions there for us.
Well, our vision statement is 21st century learning for the 21st century scholar. And anytime you have a conversation with Mr. Taylor tends to be an out of the box thinker. So he doesn't think like the average Joe Blow walking around. He always can think or add a different spin or perspective. And one thing about B.E.A.M Micro School Academy is the fact that and B.E.A.M Education is we're looking for 21st century solutions because we are a lot of people don't realize it, but we're a quarter century into the 21st century. However, you wouldn't believe it in some of the aspects as it relates to education. So that is why Al was asked to interview for to be one of the board of director members for B.E.A.M Education. So One of the questions that I have for Mr. Taylor, because he was talking about education and he was specifically talking about the resilience that you have to have, the discipline that you have to have as a leader, and the owner of a business. I want him to talk a little bit more why the possibility of the discipline, the resilience, the grit, all of those skill set, those soft skill sets that he was talking about or alluding to become so important for our children of today as they get ready to inherit what we're giving them in the 21st century.
Right. Well, the speed of life right now is at a fast pace. Technology moves in 3 years where it used to be 10 to 15 years. So knowing so much at one time is a must. And the normal education that we're getting in schools now is such a slow pace that's why it's obvious why the record shows that percentage rating is lower than it should be for the state of Texas, especially. Uh, I forget what the ranking is, but it's way low. It's not good on the reading aspect, especially. But you have to you have to do more as a whole instead of just trying to do it as the one person. You're going to have to involve everybody. It takes a village, to run something like a school, especially because the time it takes to do it, you can't do it. One person can't do it, and it's the same way in trying to run your own business. It's not just you that does it. It takes a group of people. It takes your family. It takes outside customers' help when they talk to other people. And like children need to learn what I see now is they can't put more than one thought together at one time. If you start talking to them about one conversation, in the middle of the conversation, they're off to something else halfway through the conversation. And so that's why I see where education needs to change to me because it's too much separation from the teacher to the student for them to learn. There's too many students in the classroom, so they're not going to learn as much that way. Does that make sense? What you're saying?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. You think about the fact that there's so much that we can do around technology. There's many
Right,
different ways that we can communicate and talk to each other. And so when you think about how education is set up in the traditional sense, that it really looks like when I was in school, which I won't tell you how many years ago that was when I was in
right.
elementary school,
Yeah,
but it
long
looks the
time.
same. The only difference is they put some technology in the rooms now.
Right. It's lack of
So,
communication.
right. And so when you think about what kids are getting ready to inherit, it becomes necessary that we even think about the courses on how we teach, what courses we
Right.
teach. Are they applicable to what kids are going to see in the real world? What they do when they leave school and they're at home with their
Right.
families?
Time, time management. Time management is really important on that too, as well.
All of
Yeah.
those
Hey,
different things.
I got a question for both of you guys. Currently, now in the Texas state legislature, they have a bill up to ban cell phones in schools. What is your what are both of your opinions on them thinking about banning cell phones in school?
I agree. I totally agree. Other than there still should be some kind of alert system a child should have, other than just a cell phone. Something to alert there's a problem at the school that could be easily solved. Other than a cell phone. Other than that, why do they need a cell phone in school?
Well,
Well, I might, I
Dr.
might,
Nelson, go.
I beg to differ with you just a little on
Right.
that
Right.
because I'm gonna hold my cell phone up right here.
Gotcha.
Because when I think about how powerful a smartphone is,
Right.
not only does it allow us to talk to each other on the phone, but it allows us to communicate. It allows us to look up words we don't know. It allows us to look concepts and skills we don't know. So I think that we're missing out on, and because I hear them say, well, the school day should be dedicated to educating. If I teach this in the right way, it can be
Right.
used to teach. And so therefore it's no different than putting a laptop in front of a
Yeah, I
child.
can understand that aspect. I see that. As long as it's used that way, that's totally
Right. But what
agreeable.
I think
And
we
it
left
is a
out.
protection tool. The camera is a protection tool as well.
Right. And what I
Yeah.
think we left out is, see, we're still in that 19th century model of still thinking about, we had chalkboard, we had books, we had pencil and paper, but we're not really seeing the cell phone as the tool that it is. So therefore,
Right.
every course that I have or I teach, there needs to be a part of that course that lets kids use the cell phone for good. But there also needs to be an ethical part of that lesson about when we use it for bad. And I
But
can't tell you any district that has done that.
right. Well, it sounds like, what if they were just in an app, so that's all they could use basically during the school, that allows them to do the things you are saying, but also
Exactly.
keeps them out of the media part of it, but allows
Right.
them to do the education part of it.
Well, I think that's part of what she's talking about in the ethical use of it. I mean,
Right.
because cell phone is a tool.
Right.
It's not the
It's
cell
just a
phone's
laptop,
fault.
basically the same
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Right. And to me, it makes no sense not to teach ethically how to use it and not to
Right.
look at how you can use it in a benefit as a tool. In the cell
Gotcha.
phone right here, you have access to the entire knowledge that we have in the world up to this point if you learn how to ask it the right questions. And
Right.
especially
Right.
coming now with AI and stuff like that, if we're not starting at an early age teaching our kids how to use these tools and use them
Gotcha.
in an ethical manner, then they're going to be behind because others in other countries are teaching them how to use the latest technology. And this
Well,
isn't even the latest technology anymore. It's old school technology. It's been around since we've been in college
right.
at least, or soon after. I'm not going to say
Well,
college.
what about doing a handout program where you hand out a pre-programmed cell phone that can be monitored by the teacher if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing on it?
Well, I
Exactly.
think
So there are a
I
lot of ways that you could go in so that kids, if they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, you do that with a lot of things in school.
Right. The
You see,
government does it with their computers. I mean, it can be
right.
monitored, you know.
It can be monitored. It can be set up with network administration, and once they're on that Wi-Fi, you can have control of that network on that Wi-Fi to monitor it. But to discount it as a tool and not even include it is it's like in one sense taking away and outlawing paper and pencil in one sense,
Right.
or a typewriter,
but
for
that
the old
that
school or
tells
keyboard.
you exactly where we are in thinking of ourselves in the 21st century,
Right.
because we don't see it as an educational tool. We're
Right.
still, many of the people who are making laws and rules around. That's why the laws around technology are so behind, because we're still, the people who are making the laws and the rules around the technology are not seeing it as a 21st century.
Right. Basically, a handheld computer is what it is.
Right. And so
Yeah,
when you think about even children, I would love to see what children would do with this.
Right.
See, this
Right.
would be a whole unit around what is ethical and how should technology be used by different generations. Because what I'm seeing is a void between two different groups. I'm seeing a void with the young people who know how to use it and manipulate it. And then I see old people thinking it's something that needs to be put away or put up for a period of time
Right.
so that
Right.
kids can learn. But think how many times when you didn't know how to use something and you said, let me Google on how to bake a cake in Colorado because the temperature is different. That's
Right.
teaching you right there.
Right. There's no reason to
And
stop that. I can see that.
right, right.
Right.
And so when we don't, and that is the self affirmation and actualization of people learning how they learn. And so when
Right.
you take
Right.
that tool away from kids, because in seeing this as something that's detrimental to education, instead of us teaching it to be a tool for educating, we
Gotcha.
are we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because it's always going to be here.
Right. Right. Right.
It's
well,
not
not only
going
that.
away.
Not only that, it's evolving and morphing into AI and other tools that are running on all types of computers now, whether they're cell phones, tablets, or desktop computers. And it's changing so rapidly, we have to keep up with the ethical use and the proper use on all of these tools.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not being monitored close enough on stuff like that. That's definitely true.
And I think the other thing too is a partnership with the parents, the students, and the community on proper use and what's expected and what the ramifications are if they're not being properly used. And,
Right.
the community, the learning community needs to be on the same page with that so we're not in conflict with that. And then, like you said, the other thing is threat notifications nowadays with
Right.
all the stuff going on in our communities, whether they be school shootings or natural disasters or anything else like that. I think that's the
Right.
other important reason why we need that as well.
Right.
Yeah. But Al, just give us some background. What was your experience in coming up as a student? What were the qualities that you picked up from your schooling and from your parents to make you an independent thinker and entrepreneur that you are?
Well, in that aspect, I would say just following in some of my brothers and sisters' footsteps. That's pretty much how they live. They were all entrepreneurs themselves, uh, doing anything they can to, get a leg up and help anybody else out when they do it. Uh, my mom was into legal field, so I got to see that side of it as well. Which it's a tough life out there when you're dealing with trying to walk a fine line of right and wrong when you're in a position of power. It's it's just a lot of pressure on somebody. I noticed watching it through the years. But as far as me, I think I learned more from failure than I did from you know winning every time. It seems like failure sometimes makes you stronger when you're especially when you're trying to do something for yourself. You got to believe in yourself. That's the main thing.
Dr. Nelson, Dr. Nelson, would you talk to our viewers about B.E.A.M education, B.E.A.M Academy, and how failure is built in as part of the learning process and steps for our students and the freedom that we allow them to learn from failure?
Um, so one of the things that we're looking at when we look at the programming that we have at B.E.A.M Micro School is we're specifically looking at letting kids understand through conferencing and coaching that it's okay to make mistakes and that it's the problem solving that you go through when you make a mistake to take you to the other side. So
Right.
that is going to be done through a lot of through the project-based learning that they're doing on Mondays through Thursday. We have a 2-hour session called the PEP Cube, which is prep, probe, and propel. And so during that period of time, that's 2 hours that's not set up like a traditional school day that is devoted specifically to that student. So that that teacher, that facilitator, because we call them facilitators, they can actually coach kids and conference with kids and set goals with kids so that they're in that modality of everything that we talked about, from resilience to grit to if I fail, if I get something back from the teacher and it's been scored on a rubric, and instead of it me being at mastery level, I find out that I'm at novice level, which is at the beginning level. But at the beginning level, I can actually see what behaviors do I need to do differently so that I can be successful? And that's what a lot of kids are missing. They get that piece of paper back, they see all those X's on the paper, and they're not able to understand, because if you don't give them explicit feedback to change that behavior or to really master that concept, they can't do it. So that is built into our program, that it's okay for kids to fail, but through that failure, we will turn it around to success.
Right. The little things that are ones that matter. It's all the little things that make the big things happen. And then when you forget about the little things, is that you just lose sight of where you are. You just start thinking strictly big picture, and you forget about all what really matters.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, Al, you said you grew up in a family with how many brothers and sisters?
7.
Seven.
Yeah,
And
one I found out about later, but yeah, 6 total, but at all times, one time, a lot,
okay,
a
okay. And Dr.
lot.
Nelson, speak to how B.E.A.M Academy addresses families with multiple students, and a little bit about what the projected cost is for one student or a family with multiple students for the
Well,
tuition.
the tuition is based on, one child, which is $10,000 for your payment out of pocket, and $10,000 from the vouchers if they should pass. If they don't pass, then of course the tuition would be 20,000. But what would happen with that tuition? There's a percentage taken off of every level of how many children you have on campus. So I think the number runs between 10 and 15% for every student that you have enrolled as multiple students in a family enrolled.
And talk a little bit for us, since we have the slide up, on what the steps are for enrollment for parents that are interested in enrolling their child in B.E.A.M Micro School Academy.
So if a family wants to enroll one child or two children in B.E.A.M Micro School Academy, the first thing is to attend a welcome event. Welcome events can be attended in 3 different ways. One way is to join us on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock on Facebook Live. Another way is you can also go to our website. If you go to the website, there is a link to our micro school link to the website. And then the third way is there is a pre-recorded information session that you can watch on your own. Once you watch that information session in any of those formats, you can then reach out to us to have a personalized interview, because what we're doing is we're looking for a good fit for you, and we want it to be a good fit for your family, and we want to have a good fit. So that's us talking. That's getting you to understand that you're going to move into a program that doesn't look like, say, the traditional school setting that many families are used to. And so we want you to be very aware of that. Once that interview has been done and you have paid your deposit, we move into the scholar inventory. And the scholar inventory is a copyrighted piece by B.E.A.M Micro School Academy, which consists of, number one, we look at the academic gaps as well as the strengths of the students. Number two, we look at their interests to see what they like to learn. And then we want to know how they like to learn. Are they auditory learners? Are they visual learners? Are they kinesthetic, where they like to move around? We take all of that information and we create number 4, which is a personalized education portfolio. And we also interview families to find out how the extended family supports and surrounds that particular scholar with the work. And so finally, we move into the last stage, which is integration and orientation into the B.E.A.M Micro School ecosystem.
Great. Now, Al, we talked a little bit about your educational upbringing, but you also have several kids. And I know your youngest right now, he started out in public school and you took him
Right,
out to homeschool him. So talk a
right.
little bit about your immediate family philosophy on education and what you've seen as a positive and a negative, both with your older kids coming up and now with your youngest that you're raising.
Well, the difference that I see by pulling him out of school and trying to educate him myself is first off, percentage in reading. We're ranked, I mean, high, like 27th, I think, I believe 28th in the United States on reading in Texas. Uh, why is that not a priority? I don't understand in schools, but just from my perception of the schools, I've watched and listened and not saying a word and just seeing how everybody reacts and does their job. Um, they're not putting out the effort they should be. It's the only reason these kids are not learning because kids can learn super fast at a young age, way faster than we can as adults. And if they're not being taught, how can they learn? And so they're not being taught because I asked the questions from other kids in the block. I've talked to everybody around the neighborhood or at the school, just asked them questions. I didn't tell them why I was asking them questions, but I asked them, a lot of times, what did you learn today? And none of them had an answer. They always never was an answer. And well, we did stuff. So that's not really to me. It's turned into just more a facility for babysitting instead of teaching. And when a child acts out because they're bored of doing nothing in the classroom, they're just punishing them for it. It's just wasting more time, kind of like politics nowadays. But that's just where I see the little things that when elaborating on what I meant about the little things. Working in the workforce over the years, different. I like to try different things. Just take like air conditioning man coming out of college. Very seldom does an air conditioning man coming out of college actually know how to do the job. They know the basics and they were breezed through school. Again, you can see they weren't actually being taught. More hands on is where you're going to learn your training on. And that's where I see an entrepreneurship school, micro school, like you're talking about, is going to be better at that because it's going to be more hands on, more people involved helping the student instead of the student trying to help himself. That's what I mean by the little things. It really matters.
Now, Dr. Nelson, as a reading specialist as you are, can you talk to Al's addressing the fact that he didn't feel that his child was getting the proper tutelage and education and his reading skills as being one of the reasons why he took him out of public school?
Well, number one, let's talk about the fact that the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, you had kids who were sitting out of school for 2 years. But let's
Right,
look at example of a kindergarten kid who left school for spring break. And over spring break, it was said to him, you don't have to come back to school. And so that child was out of school for 2 years. 2 years.
right,
And if they had a lot of family at home, then I'm sure that wasn't the only thing that the mom was doing if she was trying to work, or the father or the family together was trying to take care of everyone. So 2 years passed by and that student comes back. And I want you to think about some of the gaps that that child could have. That child
right,
have not understanding the sequential order of words. That child could have phonemic awareness issues. Probably not totally reading on a third grade level because they jumped from kindergarten to now they're going to be in third grade. So that is why when we started really looking at the conventional schedule of what happens in schools, at B Micro School, every child has 2 hours that is totally dedicated specifically to them, either to close their gaps or to accelerate what they already know to move them to levels of where they're working at. And so when you think about current system of how schools are set up right now, of course we're going to have issues on how do we close those gaps immediately. So
right.
the one thing that we have we are able to do with B.E.A.M Micro School is that we're able to create and customize plans that truly work for the children and their families. Because the other thing that we did not even talk about is that because we have those 2 week, I didn't say this, but we have 2 arrival times. We have a 8 arrival time, a 8 o'clock arrival time, and a 10 o'clock arrival time. If you come in at 8, you leave at 3, or you stay for the extended school program. If you come in at 10, your day ends at 5. Now, with that, because we have just lowered how kids come in and the number of students that are coming in, what that allows us to do is that allows us to have that 2 hour prep, PQ, prep, probe, and propel. So we're able to work on, if children are not reading on grade level, we can work on the isolated skills and concepts they need in reading, but we also can accelerate them on what they're doing well. They might be really accelerating in math. So more time is devoted toward now, because that's their strength, we can work on math. But what I really want people to totally think about is that a lot of times we get caught up in focusing on what children weaknesses are and not celebrating with them their strengths. So we have to do both. We have to let them know where their weaknesses are, because that's what we'll have to do the rest of our lives, is learn how to set goals around what we're not doing so well. But then we have to celebrate what children are successful at doing, and really bring that up, because that's what builds their confidence. That's what creates the joy in children.
Right.
Yep.
That's
And
that,
Al, the other thing I wanted to talk about too is one of the things that we both enjoy is using the technology of the Oculus. And that's
right.
one of the learning tools that we want to incorporate into Beam, not only to be able to take them on tours and explore history in faraway lands, but also that device and tool can be used for a simulator for several different things. So,
Right.
what are some of the ways that you've used the Oculus with your son for his homeschooling that you have seen has been a benefit to his learning?
Well, just traveling the world for one and seeing different cultures and how they do their way of life in different places. That you can see there's a simpler way and there's a harder way. You can do it. You learn a lot from that. You learn how to think about a lot more different when you look at something. You look at it totally different. You don't look at it the same. Back to like what Andre was saying about scheduling the schedule to the child. That's back to the little things. The little changes are what makes the child progress better. And that's what builds confidence as well. Like you said, when she says, when you do harp on the things that they do well, it makes the other little things that they're having a hard time with start being easier, because the stress is lifted on the back of their mind, that they know they're still a positive person, not a negative person, by the way you talk to them and address the child in class. Where, in my experience, the regular school attacks a child's uh, thinking when they make a slightest mistake, instead of just working with them, not pinpoint their mistakes, but pinpoint their achievements more, like you were saying earlier. It's the little things, and changing schedules means a lot to some children. That's all they need, is that few more minutes to wake up, or just be able to get out of the house different, because they're like a big family. There may be a reason why parents are running late at that time of the morning. Definitely, that happens to a lot of parents. Just trying to schedule all that together.
Now, do you think your son is a early morning learner or a later in the morning or later in the afternoon learner?
I think he likes to get up real early. He's gotten where he likes to get up real early and does it now. So he works. He works before anybody's up a lot in the mornings and does it himself. One thing I noticed from working with him at home, when I first started ordering the books for his grade, he wasn't up to that level at all. And then now it's a breeze for him. He just does the work on his own, and he never has hardly any mistakes. He does it really well. I mean, he just picked it up as fast. Like I say, young children learn faster than we do. He picked it up fast, and he's digging in really good. There's going to be times when he has to have a lot of help, but that's a new project or something we're starting new. But everything, the basics, he's already got it down. He just breezes right through the books. Instead of doing pages now, he's doing books. So
Excellent, excellent.
he's picked up the paces a lot.
And how old is your youngest?
11.
Okay. Dr. Nelson, can you speak to our audience what age group we're looking to bring in children to educate, and how the grouping is set up differently than it is from a conventional school?
Can I ask for one small thing?
Sure.
Could you bring up the presentation slide, the information session deck?
Yes, go ahead and
So
start talking
as you're doing
talking
that,
to that, and I'll pull that up.
so
Okay.
we have really decided that grade levels might not be the best way for us to really support the needs of children, because you think about when we put children in a grade, we're putting them in a grade, especially in the lower grades, based on an age and not specifically on their skill set, their weaknesses and their strengths, or even their interests. So what we've done is instead we're taking away the grade levels, and what we're doing is we have a lower school and an upper school. And so that upper school consists of children who are 8, 9, and 10. And the lower school consists of children who are ages 5, 6, and 7. So it's a multi-age programming. So I'm sure you're going like, why multi-age programming? Multi-age programming, the research will show you that when children are engaged in multi-age programming, the learning is accelerated. Why is the learning accelerated? The learning is accelerated because children have the opportunity to see that concept being used in different ways. So let's say I was working on addition, and let's say that in 5-year-olds, they're just learning how to decompose and compose and put numbers together. But as they watch a first grade, as they watch somebody who is 6 and 7 use numbers, they use numbers totally different. And so, therefore, that multi-age leveling, can you go to keep slide, move, next slide, next slide, one more. Just talked about that one, so you can move it. So, lower school grouping consists of ages 5 to 7. Our 5-year-olds are called our innovators because we want them to keep that curiosity. We want them to keep that creativity. So, whatever we present to them, we're going to make sure that it is fun, it is exciting, and it builds their curiosity and their creativity. The 6-year-olds are called trailblazers. And the trailblazers, they keep that curiosity going, but now we're taking them down different paths so that they have that support they need, but they also had the opportunity to see things in different perspectives. And then finally are our 7-year-olds in the low school. And they are the students who take all of that they had, that creativity, that curiosity, that thinking from more than one perspective, and now it's all bundled into one thing, so that 7-year-old is taking all of the skills and the concepts that they're learning, and they're able to look at it and use it from a lot of different viewpoints. So that would be the lower school. Let's talk a little bit about the upper school. The upper school is 8 to 10-year-olds. And so we have them categorized in 3 different groups. The first group, which is our age 8, are visionaries. And this is those students taking all of that learning they learned when they were in the lower school, and now they're envisioning, what could I use all of this new information for? Because before, in the lower grade, they were learning how to learn. But when you get to the upper grade, now they're starting to use all that learning to see how many different ways can I really hone in my own skill of how do I learn. And so then you see the catalyst and you finally see the mentors. We were doing this presentation and a mom said to us, I could just see my daughter wanting to be a mentor to all of the other age groups. So the whole thing is to build that ecosystem around having children to totally feel like they're in a community where they're supported, but they're not just supported by just the teachers or the facilitators, but they're supported by their families and their parents. Thank you, Mr. Trotter.
All right, very good, very good. Thank you for that sampling in there as well. Well, as we get ready to close out our show today, Al, is there anything else you want to share with our viewers on how you see yourself and the Beam board being an effective partner in helping to educate those in our community?
Well, just the fact that the initiative is behind it is to help other children. Y'all are already, I mean, there's not anybody pushing you to do it. You want to do it. So that right there is a good start for me to want to be involved in it. Um, but one of the main things I see is just the fact that there's going to be a structure around what the child needs, not what the teacher or the parent needs, is more what the child needs. That seems to be the main goal for the school, and I understand that. And that's where the change needs to come in.
Excellent, excellent. And Dr. Nelson, uh, speak to us about the overall BEAM education goal as well as the goal of the micro school coming up.
Well, B.E.A.M Education is a company that has 3 points of impact, and we use that word broadly, and we just use impact because if we have a company and the company is not making an impact with all of those opportunities that we have, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So B.E.A.M Education has 3 points of impact. And so those points of impact are B.E.A.M Institute, which is we provide services to school districts, to companies, as well as nonprofit organizations around training related to the change process, by implicit biases, executive coaching for principals and their leadership teams on campuses. Our second point of impact is B.E.A.M Academy Micro School, and you heard us talk a lot about that school, which is our main priority right now, as we have 5 months before the school opens. And so that will be our flagship school where individuals can come and see a lot of the research-based concepts that we will be implementing. And finally, our third point of impact is B.E.A.M Lanyap. And Lanyap is a French word for extra. And so those are our different programming, such as our entrepreneurial pitch competitions that we have, our entrepreneurial kids camp that we do. We have a parent university that we can do. We do these services. All of these things under Lanyap will be done at B.E.A.M Micro School Academy, but we also can provide these services as a la carte to school districts as well as communities.
Excellent, excellent. And what is the best way for our viewers to get in contact uh, with BEAM Education or BEAM Academy to learn more and register?
I think the best place to go is to the website. If you go to our website, you will see the numbers that you can call, as well as you can become on our mailing list for our monthly newsletter. And you can say that you want information by typing in info at beameducation.org.
And will you talk a little bit to our viewers about our 5013C nonprofit status and how that can benefit the school, their students, our community, and their taxable income?
We would love for you to give us a donation towards changing education so that there is a 21st model for others to see. And so because of that, we are a 501c, and you can donate through us through Zelle. You can donate through a check, any way, any form that you would like to, you can. And that is also can be found within our and on our website.
Very good, very good. We invite you to also join us on Facebook. We're on Facebook at B.E.A.M Education, B period, E period, A period, M period Education, and we're also on there as B.E.A.M Academy as well. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I do appreciate it. Just remember that you can contact us directly at B.E.A.M. Information at beameducation.org. If you have any questions, you can email us there. Also, you can go to the beameducation.org website as well. So with that said, and with that in mind, thank you again for joining us today. Any final words from either one of you guys before we sign off today?
Yeah, join B.E.A.M Education.
Hey, there you go. Dr. Nelson, that's a tough act to follow. What are
I
your
can't
final
say
words?
anything. He said it all. Join
Very
me, baby.
good.
Join the movement.
Yeah.
Join the movement, guys. And until next week, thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you soon. So
Take care.
until then, have a great